Hello, everyone. I just want to say it's a joy to get to be with you guys in this new format of the way we do things now since this COVID crisis has come our way. And it's always an honor and a treat to get to speak to you guys and just share from my heart. I have been given the assignment today of the topic of characteristics of a minister. And so I'm going to share some things that I look for and value and things that I try to live by in my own life. And there's so many directions you could go with this, the list could be endless for the characteristics of a minister. But before I get started I've got about 21 things to share with you in a list of characteristics. But before I start that, the first thing that I want to tell you is that you should know your why. That is one of the greatest things that you can discover about yourself, is knowing your why. I've been on this kind of a tangent, pursuing this, studying into it, and there is a book out there by Simon Sinek, and he has a TED Talk that I listened to that really inspired me, and his book is a secular book. There's no spiritual aspect necessarily woven into it, but it really, really inspired me to know my why. A lot of people start with their what. They tell you what they do, what their ministry is. They can define their what very easily, and a lot of times they can articulate their how. But a lot of people have trouble just stating their why. And in Simon's book, and even in his TED Talk, he talks about how we should, instead of starting with our what and our how, we should start with our why. And so I just want to challenge you as you are developing your life and pursuing your passion and pursuing ministry and whatever assignment that God has given to you as your purpose, that you find that out about yourself. Find out your why. Whether you're an entrepreneur, an employee, a leader of a team, or you're just looking for clarity on your next move, your why is the one constant that will guide you toward fulfillment in your work and in your life. And then when you discover your why, you live in alignment with your purpose. A lot of people focus on vision, but vision is always about the future. It's future focus and it's subjective. And you can have multiple visions, but all of us only have one why. And in this teaching that Simon Sinek does, he teaches that we have our why probably by the time we're 18, thereabout years old. And it comes from our past, and it's what shaped you to be who you are. And when you look backward over your life, when things were really going well in your life, or when you look for patterns in your life, that's how you find your why. And it's the thing that we give to the world. It's your contribution to the world. It's your foundation. It's an origin story about you. And so when you start with your why in any kind of ministry endeavor you do, it will keep you laser focused, and it causes people to buy into what you're doing, because your why is emotional. I have come up with my why. I've made my why statement, and every time I make it, I get emotional. It touches emotions deep down inside of me, and it really does keep me laser focused. And then Simon teaches in his book that you should keep reminders of your why in front of you every day. He uses colors. There's a certain color that triggers for him his why. He uses just objects that he sits on his desk. I have put my why in my daily planner right at the very front page. I've written out my why, And so everything that I do flows out of that why now. And it's kept me focused, and it's kept me from accepting things to do and getting off track in job opportunities or assignments that might come along. It's helped me to say no to things that I know would take me off track of my why. So everyone has a why. Everyone has a why. Do you know yours? And if you don't, that would be the most awesome thing that you can do for yourself early on in your life, to find that out. No matter what age you are, you should know your why. So I hope you will discover that. Now, I've got, like I said, 21 things that I've listed that are characteristics of a minister. So we're going to dive into that now. You know, probably the most sensational news in the media today, more than the news about film stars, politicians, sportsmen, celebrities, is news about preachers and other well-known men in ministry. Those make the headlines and grab the attention of people quicker than any kind of situation that develops with celebrities and politicians and that sort of thing, especially if it's bad news about them. The media reports news on these men on a wide range of issues, and they include articles and reports on misappropriation of funds. Maybe their life has been immoral. We've seen a lot of reports about ministers and pastors committing suicide because of their emotional and mental health had so deteriorated, and they just were afraid to reach out to anyone. The media reports on their lifestyles and false doctrines that they might be teaching, any kind of prideful or arrogance actions of ministers gets reported. Anytime they violate the law, or if there's divorce in a minister's life or family, or dishonesty of any kind, those types of things just really take the headlines. And so when this happens, it's more than a mark against that individual. It causes collateral damage. And that's what really troubles me about it. It's what keeps me, one of the things that keeps me trying to walk as straight as I can, is because it doesn't just affect me. If I mess up, if I have some kind of failure in my life, there are so many people that I'm connected to in my ministry life and then in my just everyday life, that it wouldn't just hurt me, it would hurt them, and it might cause them to lose out with God, and it might cause them to view being a Christian as fake and not real. And so I have to really, keep that in the forefront of my mind, because it's not just about me. When you step into ministry, it's no longer just about you. There's too much collateral damage. You can affect entire family lines by how you live your life, because there's an expectation set for people that call themselves a minister. And that's just how it is. When we step into ministry, we are on a higher platform. And I always like to use the visual of, at every church that you attend, the platform that the speaker and the singers and the pastor and all that stand on is actually raised up above where everybody's seated. And that's literally, that's a physical, natural situation, but it's also how we should view, not that we're above everybody else, but that we have stepped into a high calling. And when you step up, there's different expectations for you. You're on a different level, not in an arrogant way. And I hope that I'm communicating this well, but not in an arrogant way, and not I'm above you and you're down here, but you have stepped into a higher calling, and there are expectations for you to go up on to that higher stage and that higher way of living. It makes us more visible. That's why churches have a stage in the practical, natural sense, because it makes the person that's speaking or singing, it makes them more visible. Well, when we step into ministry, we step up into it, and it makes us more visible. So all eyes are on you when you're in ministry. They call it glass houses, and that's just the way it is. And if you can't handle that, then you shouldn't get in the ministry, because there are different expectations expected of you when you step into that role and step into that higher way of living. So, it is fair and reasonable for the public to expect you to practice what you preach. That's what that stepping up to that higher level is all about. If you're going to say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to step into this area in my life, I feel called to that, then you should, it's fair and reasonable for the public to expect you to practice what you preach. So the first thing that I wanted to share with you about a characteristic of a minister is, the first thing is, I would challenge you to be authentic. This is one of my favorite things about people. One of my spiritual gifts is discernment, and so I can spot when people are being fake, and maybe you can too. Maybe you just get a sense of when somebody's real and when they're not. And I love it when people are real and when they're authentic. And so I challenge you, try not to not try to be somebody that you're not. Don't try to be that. Be you. Be who God called you to be. Don't try to live up to somebody else's calling or standard or idea of what it should look like. You be who God called you to be. You be real. You be authentic. There's a quote that says, there's no need to be perfect to inspire others. Let people get inspired by how you deal with your imperfections. So don't be fake, and don't try to act like you're somebody that you're not. Be you, be real, and people will gravitate toward that. That should be one of your goals, is to have somebody tell you, I love you because you are so real. I just love being around you because you're real. And because that means you're being who God designed you and gifted you and qualified you to be. The second thing I wanted to talk about is the characteristic of a minister is that they are visionary. Ministers, if you're going to step into a leadership role in an area of ministry, you should be have that qualification of being visionary. And that means you think for that organization beyond today. Good leaders are always thinking beyond today. They're thinking, what's next? What's next? And it's a common question that good leaders ask. Knowing that someone must continually encourage change, encourage growth, and strategic thinking for an organization or an area of ministry that you are called to lead. And understanding that you have to be strategic and encouraging change and growth, and you have to do that to remain healthy as an organization and as a ministry. So that's something that you need to develop in your life. One of the greatest challenges in ministry is sustaining momentum. Momentum is huge, and a lot of people start, but they never continue to develop and keep the momentum going. There are three components of sustained momentum: new, improved, and improving. And so once you step into a ministry role, you have to continually be introducing something new. You have to be continually improving something or looking for ways to improve, and just constantly focused on improving areas in your ministry. Organizational momentum is often triggered by one of three things: new leadership, new direction, or a new product or new program. Momentum is never triggered by tweaking something old. It is triggered by introducing something new. Momentum is created. It does not randomly occur. and it requires our best efforts, and keeping momentum going can be exhausting. And so as a leader in ministry, one of the characteristics that you have to have as a visionary leader is to constantly being very creative, be thinking forward, thinking about, well, this is working today, but our world changes so fast. And even in this COVID crisis that we're living in right now, we're talking about the new normal, how to live in the new normal, but nobody really knows how to define the new normal. And Pastor Don and I, we had a staff meeting yesterday, and that was our topic of conversation. How do we lead in this new world that we find ourselves in? I am not able to be there with you live and in person like we usually do. We're doing this by video because everything has changed about how we do this. And so you're constantly having to be forward thinking and visionary thinking as you continue to cast vision and keep the momentum moving forward. Dave Ramsey describes the momentum rule like this: focused intensity over time multiplied by God creates unstoppable momentum. In ministry, as in any other arena, momentum is much easier to keep going than to create. So once you get going, then while you got everybody moving forward, you have to be over here thinking about what's next. Okay, so number 3, the third thing that I wanted to share with you is to talk to you about judging, criticizing, and condemning other ministries. Never let that happen. I don't care if you left a ministry to come to a new place of ministry. Don't criticize and don't judge how someone else was doing ministry. You don't know all the details. You don't know all the backstories. And that's one of the things that I personally notice about a person. I've stepped into a role in a new area of ministry where I'm at right now, and we're interviewing staff. And a lady we interviewed yesterday is working in another secular job and has applied for a position that we're offering in this new ministry that I'm overseeing. And nearly the whole part of her interview, she complained about the job that she's in right now. She complained about the leadership. She complained about the lady at the top. She complained about those that she works with. She complained about how they make things flow in their offices, and the things that they require her to do but don't support her in doing. And so then she stopped and said, but I don't even know if the lady that oversees this area even knows how it's falling down through the ranks. And so I'm like, okay, so if you don't know that she knows that you're in trouble, and she wasn't willing to step in and be the person that went to the director and explained the issue, then you shouldn't be complaining. You should just step aside. Don't judge, don't criticize, and go find somewhere else that you feel fulfilled, and knowing your why helps you to do that. So don't judge, don't criticize, and don't condemn other ministers and other ministries. When you hear somebody doing that, you need to turn the conversation, switch the conversation, and don't let that stuff come out of your mouth. Number 4, a characteristic of a good minister has above average character. Now, we talked a little bit about this above, but there's no perfect people, but for a leader to be considered good, they must have a character that is unquestioned within the organization. Leadership always draws criticism from someone, so a leader may not be able to get everybody to believe in him or her, but the people who know the leader best should trust the leader's character. And let me just say, your social media presence says a lot about who you are as a person. Please, if you are in ministry, please be aware of what your social media presence looks like. We have some acquaintances that are in ministry, and they are posting some pictures that are just not okay. And I know that when we hire staff at our church, we have people that when they hear who we're hiring, they go and look at their social media account to see what they're living like and what they're posting on there and that sort of thing. And so there's companies that check out your social media before they hire you. So live above board and make sure those types of things, what kind of image you're portraying, is godly. Number 5 is neglecting one's family responsibilities. That's a big thing. Ministry can consume your life, and if you're not careful, your family will get set to the side. So one way to guard for that is to put important dates on your calendar, ball games, school events, just depending on where you are in life, and if you have a young family or teenagers or something like that still living at home, make sure you put your family first. Don't sacrifice your family for ministry. Make them a priority. Tony Robbins says this: if you talk about it, it's a dream. If you envision it, it's possible. But if you schedule it, it's real. And so schedule important things that your family is doing. Block off a vacation time. Make sure every year that you set aside time that you spend with your family. Number 6, be friendly. If you're going to be a minister, you have to like people, and you have to learn to like people, and you have to be friendly with people. Even if you're an introvert, I'm an introvert by just naturally. I'm an introvert, but my husband is an extrovert, and so he has taught me how to keep a conversation going and how to engage people. And people are our business in ministry. Remain accessible, approachable, and accountable to others. I saw this quote: your smile is your logo, your personality is your business card, how you leave others feeling after having an experience with you becomes your trademark. That's good. The characteristic of a minister is that they continue to learn. Good leaders are always learning and implementing those learnings into the betterment of the organization. I call it stealing ideas, but I love to borrow ideas from other organizations when I see what they're doing and how it's working. And in order to keep that momentum going that I talked about earlier in your ministry, you have to be continuing to learn and better yourself and become more knowledgeable. Let's see. Never give up on people is a great characteristic of a minister. And then this one is hugely important. Always make sure that you have a spiritual covering. You should have somebody that you have given permission to speak into your life. Somebody that can call you out, that you can confide in, that you can trust, and that you will allow them to speak back to you anything that they see needs correction in your life. Seek the godly counsel of godly men and have accountability to someone. Everybody should have a spiritual covering. That's the way God designed it. Everybody should have somebody that they're accountable to. A spiritual covering will be a strong deterrent force to an unethical lifestyle, and access to receive godly counsel from some godly men or women of wisdom and experience in your life is a must. Proverbs 15:22 says, where there is no counsel, purposes are frustrated. Wow, that's so good. But with many counselors, purposes are accomplished. So having that godly counsel in your life causes your purpose to be accomplished. That's how powerful a spiritual covering is. Proverbs 11:14 says, in the Amplified, it says, where no wise guidance is, the people fall, but in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. That's awesome. Another question I would ask you as a minister is, who is discipling you? It kind of goes with this spiritual covering. Who is discipling you? But also, who are you discipling? You should always be discipling someone, whether it's a group of people that you have handpicked or chosen. You should always be developing someone. You should never set that aside in whatever area that you lead. You should always be pouring into someone else. 2 Timothy 2:2 says, you have heard me teach things that have been confirmed by many reliable witnesses. Now, teach these truths to other trustworthy people who will be able to pass them on to others. So if you want to know how to grow your ministry, is you disciple others. You disciple people. If you have a church that you're pastoring and you want to grow that church, you disciple people. You're always pouring into their life and speaking into their life. Another one that I would mention to you today is to determine to please God rather than men. I have this saying, if I please God, I will please those that please God. And so a lot of people it'll be hard to please in the ministry. There will be people that will always be critiquing the way you do things and the way you live your life. But if your goal is to please God above everything else, then you won't have anything to worry about. And God will deal with the people that stay unhappy with you. Just leave that to Him to deal with. Next, build God's kingdom rather than your own kingdom. Man, if you go out ministry, if you go at it where you're just going to build something that is built around you, guess what? When you're done, that ministry will cease. It will end. But when you build it around God and your focus is on building His kingdom, then it will succeed and it will continue on, because God will raise up somebody to step in there to carry it and make it a lasting impact. I hate the idea of everything that I've worked to build over my life would end with me. That would be horrible. I want there to be people that catches. I want to be a contagious leader, a contagious minister, a contagious Christian, so that people will catch the fire and catch the passion that I have for God and for His Word and for ministry, and they will want to continue with what I have taught them and the way I've led them. They want to continue that on. Another one that I would talk to you about is to try not to compete with other ministers. Don't compete with other ministers. Don't even focus on if that eats your lunch. Don't even follow them on Facebook. Don't even follow them on Instagram. If that bothers you that they are bigger than what your ministry is, then turn that off. Don't let that get in your mind. You do what God called you to do. And if I please God, if I'm doing what He called me to do, if I'm where I'm supposed to be, where He called me to be, where He sent me, and I don't get off into comparison with other ministries, then I am a success. Nobody else can pastor CT Church right now because God called me and my husband here to pastor this church. And when you get that mindset, it keeps you from that comparison of others and other ministries. Don't do that. Don't try to compete with them. Just do what God called you to do, where He called you to do it. One thing I really want to stress to you is every church or every ministry assignment that God calls you to has a God assignment attached to it. Wherever that is, like for us, it's always been a church inside of a community. And so when we came here to CT Church, we evaluated our community. Who lives here? What's the population mix? What's the ethnicity situation here? We studied, what is the need of our community? And then how can we transform our community? And one of the things that I would tell you to watch for is when you start a ministry or you're called to an area of ministry, or especially to a church. For us, what I always look for is, who does God send to this house? And one of the things we do is we assess their gifts and their skills and the things that God has anointed them to do. We do that through our Connect track because I believe that God sends the people that are that He sends the people to this house to fulfill the assignment and the mission that He has for this house. And so I watch for that, and I look for the gift sets that are coming through the door at our church. That's one way to know what is God's assignment for this role that I'm in, and who are the people that He is bringing to me that connect to me easily, and I enjoy working with, and I feel like we're in the same lane together, and we really are pursuing this together. Look at everybody's gift set, because that will give you an idea of what the assignment is. Now, I love this one. As a leader, you should create a core group around yourself. I handpick people, and then I discover people. So those are two ways that I do this. Leaders become great not because of their power, but because of their ability to empower others. And that's one thing that you will have to know how to do as a minister, as a leader. You will have to learn how to empower others. And I love this saying, wow people need how people. Wow people need how people. That will be on your test, by the way. Wow people are visionary people. They're just like, they come up with all these ideas, and they're just constantly dreaming and planning and future focused. They're idealistic, they're inspirational, they're excited about possibilities. But wow people rarely get things done on their own because they need how people. How people may not come up with the idea, but they know how to execute the wow part. And the how people are implementers and executioners of the vision. They know how to take the big dream and break it down into tiny steps. I'm actually a how person. I've had to be a wow person in some areas that I lead, and I've learned how to do that. My husband is 110% a wow person. He can come up with more things than we can get done. But I am the practical step-by-step person. I'm the how person, typically and just naturally. But how people love progress and process. Leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that impact lasts in your absence. Isn't that good? And just a couple of more before we finish up here. I want to talk to you about money issues. How you handle finances is a big, big deal in ministry, personally, and also in like a corporate setting. If you're overseeing a church or overseeing a ministry and the buck stops with you, so to speak, you need to have a high standard in the financial piece. Tithing is a non-negotiable for me. I always say, how can you expect to receive a check from people that you're asking to give every week when you're not even participating and being a faithful giver and tither? And then when it comes to handling money that comes into your ministry, you need to establish boundaries. You as the leader should never sign a check. Me or my husband do not sign any checks here at our church. We don't know the combination to the safe. We do not count the offering. We're never a part of that dynamic. We have a financial person that oversees that, and they have their team of administrative assistants and even some volunteers from our church that handle that piece. And then they just send us an email with a report in it of what came in, what offerings totals were, and that sort of thing. We I don't even know what the checking account number is. So you have to establish boundaries because, as you remember when I started, that's one of the things that's always in the news and always in the media because we're held at that higher standard. And so anytime there's any kind of questions about ministries and how the people are handling the funds that come into a ministry, it gets blown up in the world, and it causes people to lose trust in God, and it causes people to lose trust in leaders, and it causes people to, you literally have to be at a place of ministry for years before people actually give you their trust. And it's because there's been so much brokenness in this area of ministers and ministry. And then the last one that I will give you today is don't be afraid for others to succeed, even greater than your own success. Good leaders realize that some followers will outgrow the leader's ability to develop them any further. Good leaders, however, aren't threatened by another's success. They are willing to celebrate as those around them succeed. And I have a quote. It says, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are a real leader. So the challenge of leadership is to be strong but not rude, be kind but not weak, be bold but not bully, be thoughtful but not lazy, be humble but not timid, be proud but not arrogant, have humor but without folly. That was a little quote. Now, real quickly, as I wrap up, I want to give you 3 things that you as a minister should never, sacrifices you should never make as a minister. You should never sacrifice your identity. Number 1, never sacrifice your identity. You be who God called you to be. You do not accept things. You do not accept roles and assignments that you don't feel like that's what God called you to do. Sure, there's times when you have to jump in and help out, but I'm talking about long-term assignments. Don't step into something that you don't feel like God has called you to do or qualified you to do. You should never sacrifice your family, and I've talked a little bit about that. Always make room and make space and make time for your family. Don't give them the leftovers. Don't come home so exhausted and so worn out that you just fall in your chair and you go to sleep and you have nothing left to give your family. Make your family a priority. You got to take your family to heaven, and make sure you don't sacrifice your family. And then the third thing is you should never sacrifice your joy. Never sacrifice your joy. There is a scripture that I love that goes along with this in Habakkuk 3:17. And it says, though the cherry trees don't blossom and the strawberries don't ripen. And this to me is a picture of sometimes what life is like in ministry. The cherry trees don't blossom, the strawberries don't ripen, though the apples are worm-eaten and the wheat fields are stunted, though there are no sheep in the pen and the cattle barns are empty. I'm singing joyful praises to God. I'm turning cartwheels of joy to my Savior God. I'm counting on God's rule to prevail. I take heart and gain strength. I run like a deer. I feel like I'm king of the mountain. Amen? So never sacrifice your identity. Never sacrifice your family. Never sacrifice your joy in ministry. One of the ways I keep my joy is I keep an encouragement file. I keep an encouragement file in my emails and then paper, like a paper folder file. And I keep cards and notes and things like that. And when I get discouraged, I'll pull out that file and I'll read some of the things that's been written to me over the years by people that I have led in ministry. And another thing that I do is I pick out certain people that I have discipled that have lived a successful, overcoming Christian life. And when I get disappointed with these people over here, I make myself go back and just focus on those 2 or 3 couples that I picked out in my church and just sit and think about how far they've come and what God has brought them from. And it helps me to not get discouraged in ministry. So I hope this has been a help to you today. And again, it's been a joy to get to come to you in our new format that we are using today in today's world. And I hope you've learned something from this today. And I just pray that it blesses you and it helps you on your journey in ministry. God bless you. Love y'all. See you later.